Happy Valentine's Day, guys. Happy Valentine's Day. Today is the day. It's the 14th of February, right in the middle of the month. How are you doing? Did you get your flowers? Did you get chocolates? Did you even get a call or did you not? Do you even care about Valentine's Day? Yeah? I should answer the question myself. This is my second year without my Valentine's, and it's hard. It's not easy. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm one of those ones who really likes to celebrate anything. Any reason to celebrate, I will be there. So, anyway, happy Valentine's Day. Today is the relationship show where my colleague Susan and I will come and chat with you about relationships. Literally, what a day to have it on a Friday. I'm so happy it actually fell on one of the days that we actually have it, the relationship show. Yeah. So welcome to the live stream. I'm going to send you an invitation here. I'm going to copy this invitation and put it up, and you can actually join the StreamYard if you want, or you can comment in there. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in there. And yeah, welcome to the show. Tell us all about you. So let me invite Susan early on. I'm sure she has a lot to say about Valentine's Day. Karibu, Susan. You don't have much to say. Yeah, you do.
Hello.
Tell me about Valentine's
Hello,
Day. How was your
everybody.
Valentine's Day? What did you do today?
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, what reminded me it was Valentine's Day was that across the valley from where we live there was like a disco going on, and then and it was so loud. It was so loud that I asked my children, why does the ground feel like it's shaking? And can you hear that noise?
And with all the earthquakes out there, which is that country that has so many earthquakes? Is it Greece? You probably thought you were being transported there. Hmm?
Then I remembered it. Perhaps the school across the way, across the valley, is having a Valentine's Day bash for the students. Yeah,
Yeah, it just goes to
but
show how young we are, man, that
the
we've forgotten that
newspaper
time
was
is supposed to shake.
interesting. I don't. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Let me bring you on board. Let me put you on solo layout. Yeah,
Can you
I can
see
see
that?
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
What
this
does
is
it
the
say?
story.
Put it closer. What does it say? Maybe read it.
Okay, the story is that Joanne Mutheu, an actress and content creator, holds a Kenya shilling 150,000 uh, cash bouquet, a surprise Valentine's gift from her boyfriend at Mystical
Whoa.
Waterfront in Roiro, Kiambu County. So the caption says, "Out with the roses, in with the money bouquets."
And meanwhile, somebody sent me a card with a potato bouquet. I'm receiving a potato bouquet while other people are receiving money bouquets. I've seen those cash bouquets. They're crazy. People have gone way out. Some people go full blown on Valentine's Day, and it's good to show love. But 150,000 shillings, wow, that is serious money. I do remember. What is she gonna pay with? Because I remember my dad saying, "No man ever gives you money for free." You never get anything for free. You have to pay back. So, Madame Mutheu, you better come up with your payback strategy, because you either accept it and you have to start paying. Yeah, no, you're not going to kula what? Kula fair. You can't kula fair and not give back.
How many dollars is that? 150,000. How
Oh,
many dollars is it? It's
thousand
possible it was
dollars.
converted. It was
It's almost a
converted
thousand
from
dollars.
dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
something
Could be a
like that.
thousand plus. Mm, yeah. If you go with
Yeah,
$1 being 150, or let's say $1 being 130, it could be like about
yeah.
1,100 or $1,200. Yeah. It's quite good money in this economy, especially in February. Well, just coming from January. Okay, guys. So today we're talking about the shocking truth about why people cannot love. Yeah. Nowadays, it's so difficult to find love and to find people who have the spirit and the energy. for a relationship, you know, either short term, long term. There's people, lots of people who want short term relationships, but there are very few people now, all of a sudden. It seems to be some sort of trend. Yeah. And you'll see a lot of Gen Zs, yeah, saying, hey, I'm not interested in relationships. Thank you very much. I'm happy to just be by myself with my cat or with my job, with my career. You know, I don't want this, you know, being involved in any relationship. And we're thinking with Susan, what do you think could be triggering this? What do you where is this coming from? I saw a TikTok video of some guy blaming Gen Zs and saying that even if you raise your voices at a Gen Z, they'll just say, this guy said, do you know that you'll have your wife or your girlfriend, you'll marry a woman and then you just, you know, raise your voice at them 1 minute. Then they'll tell you, oh, I can't live with a violent man. And off they are, packed and gone back to their house. And you know, and I hear Gen Alpha is even worse. Apparently, there's a story in the comment section. I saw one of the mothers saying that that is nothing. Think about my son. I was shouting at him the other day, and he said, "Mom, stop shouting. I can hear you either way, even if you speak softly with a low voice. You don't have to shout." And you know, in Africa, that is really shocking for many parents because we were never able to like talk back to our parents and even the millennials themselves. These are millennial parents who are saying that the Gen Zs are way too soft. They cannot tolerate a relationship. They don't know how to go without milk, drinking black tea with lemon if there's no milk in the house, or drinking porridge. They don't know how to do that because they've been raised with milky tea with bread or with some accompaniment. So basically, I think childhood trauma is one of the barriers to relate to good relationships. It's important to understand that love is reciprocal. Loving relationships have to be reciprocal. Yeah, you can't make someone love you. Like somebody said very well here on TikTok, and I'm going to share that video with you here, that you can't make people love you. Yeah, it's something that has to be reciprocal, and you can't force them to like you. So let me show you that video where I saw that. I follow TikTok quite a bit, and I find it quite interesting. Let me see if it's this one. Which one is it? Oh boy, because I have so many of them. Yeah, but you can't. Here he is. Let me share this. See this guy, what he's saying, huh? Let me make it full screen so that you can listen. It's very short.
You can't, I repeat, you can't make someone love you by giving them more of what they don't appreciate.
Yep, I've never seen something more impactful than that. You cannot make someone love you by giving them what they don't appreciate, which is your attention or whatever you're going to give them. You can't. If they like you, they like you. If they don't like you, they don't like you, and that's it. Yeah, that's the sad truth of the matter. Yeah. So I think it's important. We were watching a video today by Oprah and this gentleman called Dr. Goose Perry. This video was forwarded to me specifically by Ida, who is my friend and someone who also follows us in the StreamYard and makes comments in StreamYard. I don't know whether she's going to be on with us tonight, but that was a very interesting video. If you guys can go and watch it, it's by Oprah Winfrey, and let me see if I can find it for you so that you can take a look, and in your spare time you can actually take a look at it and watch it. But basically, what they're talking about there is that, yeah, what they're talking about there is that it's important to understand people's stories. You need to know where people are coming from, okay, and why they behave the way they do. And it's important that you, when you're choosing, let's say when you're choosing a partner, the way I would interpret this to be, because this was really talking about childhood trauma, but when it comes to loving relationships, I think the way you grow up has a huge impact on the way that you behave, on the way that you behave and on the way that you see relationships, whether you see them as positive or negative, has a lot to do with how you were brought up. And apparently, the 0 to 2 years old stage, okay, can do the most damage to a child and either make them learn to trust or not to trust other people. So for example, if you were brought up in an environment where you felt safe, as opposed to where you felt unsafe, where you felt seen, where you felt as opposed to unseen, where you felt included and integrated as opposed to isolated, where people took your side as opposed to bullied you. So all of those things, all of those have an impact on your life. So the question is, why is it that people cannot love? A lot of people cannot love because they are narcissistic personalities. They could have a narcissistic personality disorder, okay, where it's all about them, it's all about attention to them. They become victims, they are victim blaming, and they are used to manipulation and victim blaming and outside appearances, keeping up appearances. Did anybody ever watch that program by Penelope? Is her name Penelope? She's always keeping up appearances. Very interesting British comedy, and she that was a perfect example of a narcissist, actually, as much as I liked her, because she was all about the outside, about showing, who, trying to show off what she really wasn't, trying to make it seem what she is not. But anyway, let me ask Susan to explain that one, because I know she's watched that. Do you remember that, Susan? Keeping up appearances. Mm?
No, I didn't watch that. I didn't watch that,
Oh, you
but there were
haven't
plenty of
watched it?
comedies.
Oh my God, that's an
No.
amazing British comedy. You cannot miss it. Go and watch it and you'll understand. This lady is always trying to associate with the higher classes, and she
Okay.
pushes her poor husband, who's a very humble man,
Yeah.
educated, humble man. She's always trying to be this prim and proper British woman and pretend that, she's of the upper classes, where really she is basically down here. So she ignores all her poor relatives. She's so interesting. She ignores her poor relatives and she stays very far away from them. And she only wants, she gets, everything is really dreadful when they come in at an inappropriate time into her house, because most of the time they're dressed down, their house is in shambles, and hers is always prim and proper. And it's just a very interesting comedy. But I think from watching a lot of those comedies, I think there's an underlying message about how we project ourselves, and what it is we're trying to show. So and how we project ourselves and who we really are. And in terms of when one is seeking a relationship out there, whether you're going to go online and seek a relationship with someone, you always have to know that there's a story behind every person online. They have a story, and that story has shaped who they are. And that's the reason why I think in African tradition and many other traditions, the first thing they ask is, what's your story? Who are you? Tell. Is that true or not? Am I lying? I think we kind of inherently know that we want to understand this person's story. Who are you? Okay, mom, I'm dating someone, or met someone. Really? What's their story? Who are they? Who are their parents? Where did they grow up? Those are very valid questions. I mean, we may not have had that kind of language, the sophisticated language to describe it. But the fact is that Africans and traditional societies understood the importance of understanding the story behind someone. And the story is not what's on the outside, it's what's not stated. And sometimes it has to be stated by other people. Because if you're used to what's on the periphery, on the outside, all you do is just you look and you see this person is beautiful, they'll be a perfect partner, they speak really well, but you don't really know who they really are and what their story is. And that will shape your relationship and determine whether or not that relationship will work or not. Yeah. So Louis is saying, hi Louis, how are you? I grew up in a cold fish house. I never saw my dad kissing, hugging, or saying I love you to my mom. This
Oh,
morning, my dad, mom, and I had breakfast together at a restaurant. Wow, that's nice though.
yeah.
In a
That's
cold,
nice.
which is unusual. In Africa, you don't see this. Public displays of affection is quite abnormal in many African households. Yeah, but then they communicate in different ways. Usually, a father might decide he's going to buy clothes for the wife, or take her somewhere, accompany her somewhere. That would be now the public uh, displays of affection. But in the US context, I fully understand how difficult it must be where everybody else is holding hands. PDAs is so common. Susan, you're saying?
Yeah,
Nice.
for sure. Yeah,
And
for
happy
sure. I
Valentine's
mean,
to you. Okay.
yeah, happy Valentine's, Louis. That's a lovely morning. That's a lovely way to start your day. Congratulations. Um, yeah, definitely one of the issues there, I think, is the attachment. Is the attachment theory, which says that attachment in parent-child relationships is a foundational aspect that influences a child's emotional well-being, behavior, and relationships. So the attachment between parent and child is so crucial, and that's why the holding, what Louis was talking about, not seeing that, even in the privacy of their home, not seeing the physical signs of affection. So you can also learn that that is how you're supposed to behave. That's the challenge now of learned behavior, what you see in your home. And it could be good things and also bad things that you can see, and you know which can really influence and impact your life. So anyway, this theory is about attachment, and it says that this is why you end up with some people being unable to show emotions outwardly, and others being very good at it. And it depends on the type of attachment they have with their parents. So I think we went over some of these last time, and there's the secure attachment, and this is a child who's secure. Then there's
Mhm.
three insecure attachments. One is called insecure avoidant. The
Mhm.
child avoids closeness and intimacy with caregivers. They have learned that their needs will not be consistently met, leading them to be self-reliant and avoid seeking um, comfort from the caregiver. So they're self-reliant type of child, um, and who avoids closeness. And you develop and you grow up that way. That's how you relate. That's what you've learned. Uh, then the insecure, disorganized one is observed in a child who has experienced neglect and abuse. So they display lack of clear attachment behavior, showing confusion and disorientation in their interactions with caregivers. And the third insecure one is insecure ambivalent attachment. So the child is anxious and uncertain about caregivers' availability and responsiveness. And so they seek closeness but are weary of it. So they're leading to clinginess and difficulty exploring independently. So this is the clinging one. The
Mhm.
ambivalent attachment, the one who clings. The disorganized one is the one who is a little confused about how to relate to their caregiver. And then the avoidant one is sort of very self-sufficient. They don't depend on the caregiver. They actually avoid closeness with and intimacy with their caregivers. So that's where you find some of those behaviors. And something you said earlier about the two faces of a narcissist. Out there in the public and when they're with other people, they look like a shining light, a pure, a perfect rose or whatever,
Mhm.
perfect gentleman. At home, they could be terrorists, you know. The family knows them
Oh
as
yeah.
terrorists,
Oh yeah.
you know, and they
Mhm.
actually terrorize every member of their family or some members of their family, but out there they're known as such nice people and stuff
Those are
like
called
that.
covert narcissists. Covert as opposed to overt. And they're very
Yeah.
common apparently. Yeah. Covert narcissists are people who, they kind of like portray a different image on the outside when they're with other people. That means that they know what they should what they should portray, what they should be like, but they're completely different. It's almost they're unrecognizable. If
Yeah,
somebody was
in
to
fact,
describe that person out there, you won't
yeah,
recognize them. Yeah, at
that's for
home.
sure. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I was listening to Oprah in that video that we're
Mm-hmm.
watching,
Mm-hmm.
and her experience in being asked to say something good about somebody, uh,
About her
you know,
mother. Mm-hmm.
yes, and
Yeah.
she found it really difficult. She heard all these wonderful things the other children were saying, but she didn't have, that was not her experience, so she didn't know what to say without lying. you know not
Yeah.
lying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there are many people who find themselves in those circumstances where you're asked to say something and you're like, I don't know. Especially, I have heard of situations like even eulogies, you know, the
Yeah.
eulogy, where, for instance, the widow will not read a eulogy. She will not. She will not. Whatever you see there is something that's written about the history of the person. They went to school, they did this, they did that. But in terms of the relationship with the family, it's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you
I've
find
never
the
really
widow,
thought about the reason why they don't read, the women. I thought it's just because they're so sad
some,
that their
some.
partner is gone.
No, there was
Yeah.
no eulogy. Not just this particular case I'm telling you, the cases I'm talking about, is there's no eulogy
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because they don't know what to say
Mm-hmm.
without lying. So,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, they'll just give the eulogy and talk about, factual things about the person. But, usually the widow has her own part
Yeah.
where she writes and she says,
Yes, yes,
okay,
yes,
let's say
yes.
the widow or the widower. But this
Yeah.
one, in these ones, they're not able to express their relationship or what the value of that person without lying. So instead of lying, they'd rather not say anything. And then
Yeah.
everybody thinks, of course, they're overcome with grief, but it's actually a deeper reason why they can't.
Yeah.
They can't
Yeah.
because
I
of,
guess
because of
she
their
doesn't want
belief.
to say something about him that people don't know because he hasn't projected
Yeah,
that in public. Maybe he was a narcissist, a
yeah,
covert narcissist, and in public he
exactly.
had a different. Whatever they're saying about him, she can't even relate. Yeah, and the question then is, why is it that some people are just unable to love? They just lack empathy. You know, they're so unempathetic. They have no feelings. They're like dead, just like Louis is saying, cold fish house. Growing up in a home where there's no affection, no showing of love, no hugging, no, not even kissing, but even just like acknowledging the presence of another person and being warm towards them or serving meals to each other. Some homes are like that. People are just crossing. They're just crossing in the corridor back and forth. What kind of a life is this? And then imagine meeting such a person and imagine being married to such a person. Now that is hell. It means that they'd have to have been covert narcissists to show you a different side of themselves from who they really are. And there's somebody else who's also said BMI is actually a BMM 3000 reloaded. Hello and welcome. And they say Karibu, preserve the best of African cultures. Western beliefs in love and care are limited. Really? What do you mean Western beliefs in love and care are limited? But why is it then that Kenyan women are being accused of running after white men? If indeed that is true. Oh, he's saying that Western beliefs are individualistic and egocentric for men and women. Such beliefs, though well intended, can be destructive if not checked. Western psychology may be engaged, but must be engaged critically. Yeah. Okay, okay. I hear you about the individualistic, but if you think about egotistic, don't you? If you just read everything that is written, I mean, if you read the communications, for example, on TikTok, on Facebook, and you see what, for example, passport bros are saying, and even what African men are saying, like, like you talk about what is it, the Kilimani Diaries. If you read about the Kilimani diaries and the men complaining about their loneliness, yeah. Well, I mean, that is, there could be something to do with individualism there. Yeah, and ego. As for being egocentric, I think that we are, our leaders are already showing a lot of ego. They're very individualistic, very egocentric. They don't think about the community anymore. They're bosses, they're puppets to the West. And a lot of us have also picked up a lot of those traits. Westernization is all over. Yeah, it's almost impossible to avoid. And it seems to me like a lot of, for example, I would say a lot of men and women, they expect their partner to pander to their whims. It's all about me, 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 me. There's a lot of me, me, me there. Yeah. Like, for example, you see that some men get very jealous when a woman has a child, and now the attention is diverted over to the child. What is that? That is individualistic, egocentric. Yeah, because you see, the child's survival depends on the mother's love, and the mother being, what do we say, attentive to the child, much more attentive than they could possibly be to you as an adult, as a male. Yeah, so I think that a lot of our culture right now, the reason why a lot of people don't want to be paired up, and I met with one of them today. I I met a lady on the road today, by the way, and I just decided to give her a ride. And she happens to be a Gen Z, and I just decided to bring up the issue of Valentine's Day. And she said, "Yeah, I was married before, and now I'm living on my own. I can't deal with his issues. I can't. I'd rather raise my kids by myself." I said, you people have very low tolerance, eh? You have low tolerance compared to the rest of us. Says, yeah, nowadays, we don't have time. We don't really have the level of tolerance that our parents and grandparents had in relationships. Yeah, I'm not ready to tolerate being mistreated. But I said, I don't really think it's about tolerating being mistreated. It's about understanding that relationships go through phases and seasons. And also putting yourself last, maybe not putting your needs first. I don't know.
I think really the socialization and what you see
Mm-hmm.
at home really impacts the way you relate with others, you know, outside there. Because, for instance, if you come from a really
Yeah.
warm home, or you come from a home where you have anger issues, let's say anger management issues, say your dad or one of your parents or both of them have anger management issues, you find that some of the children will behave in exactly the same way, throwing the tantrums, throwing the books, stamping, shouting at people, maybe even getting physical, that sort of thing. And that is learned behavior. But when you're talking about somebody being cold, there could be what do you call it? Some Something in the way the brain is wired, and that could be somebody perhaps who has is it sociopathic or one of them, one of those tendencies where they don't uh, they don't experience emotion in the normal way. Yeah, I think psychopaths are the ones who are able to hide. Yeah, psychopaths are the ones who learn how to behave, although they don't feel anything. And I think sociopaths, if I'm not wrong, somebody can correct me. So sociopaths are the ones who, they don't care who sees them behaving in that bad way, and they don't hide who they are, and they're very scheming, and they're trying to get everybody into a mess. So so one of them is, there's something wrong with the wiring in the brain. Not the wire, the way the brain has formed is a problem. And then the other one has learned it. The sociopath has learned that behavior. It's been conditioned by society, by their life's experiences, by what was happening, what happened to them, basically. And that is what has made them perhaps that cold person, that withdrawn person. It's like a coping mechanism. So that person, rather than show themselves their joy or their amusement at something, they just give this veneer of being cold, although they may not actually be cold. Maybe they're actually amused by something, but they've learned how to be very stoic because of maybe the intolerance in the home, about certain behavior. I remember one time we had a neighbor, and
Uh-huh.
she, her mother was much older. You know, I think she was born late in the life of her parents, and so the mother was much older, and I think the mother was older than the father, and she was very, very intolerant. So while the rest of the children were playing outside, making a lot of noise, uh, this young lady could only watch us play from her window. You know, she could only watch us playing from her window. She could not come out of her room, but she could see us playing. And she was actually older than we were, but she was
How
at
sad.
an age,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. So she, and her mother was a shouter. So her mother would shout and we could hear her yelling, yelling at her. One time, one of our neighbors was riding the bicycle and sort of by mistake sort of landed in her marigold. And
I can just see that picture.
then we had a coming from the
Oh
house.
my God.
This
They must
one,
have left
I
their
know.
bicycle over there and ran for their lives.
Yeah, he left the
Did you? Ah,
he left
I
the
would do that.
bike and took off. And she was very cold. She never spoke to us. But this
Just
young lady would be
imagine
at
not
the
a woman. I
window
mean,
watching us.
not the husband. Oh, God. Yeah. I tell you,
Yes,
there's some very toxic environments, very toxic
she was.
environments where children are being
Yeah,
raised. Yeah.
she was
And
very
BMI is
cold.
saying women, Kenyan ladies are becoming more reckless. Western men, westernization. I say it's not really what they're becoming is they are actually rebelling. They don't want to be like their moms. They don't want to be subservient, docile like their mothers. And their mothers have trained them. A lot of these women have been trained by their moms. And they've been told by their moms, go after an education, go after a career, forget men, forget relationships because of what the women have gone through. And so, if a woman grows up, a young woman grows up in that kind of environment, in that kind of a household, they become reckless when they grow older. They can abandon tradition completely, especially when they are financially secure and independent. Phew, you know? And I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that you need to understand the context. You understand the story. Where does it come from that these Kenyan women are becoming reckless? I live in the coast, so I see a lot of this so-called recklessness of women, and I see them sitting outside there waiting for. We call them ladies of the night, but I've had many opportunities to sit with them and find out their story, and most of them are called by their friends actually. Yeah, most of them are actually set up by their friends. They're told, "Come over here." Over here in the coast, you're going to meet a Western man and he's going to help you and he's going to help your family and he'll give you money. And maybe this person comes from a poor family. And when you live in a society that discriminates women, where women cannot get jobs, or, if in order for them to get jobs, they have to sacrifice their dignity, then for many of those women, they would say, okay, let me just try plan B. Yeah, let me go do plan B and not do that with my own fellow African men. Let me go out there and try it with a Western man because if I have to trade, then in that case, probably it's like Forex. I'll be trading in Forex as opposed to local currency. That's what's going on in their minds because for them, it's a matter of it's business, actually. I've talked to those ladies. I mean, they're ruthless. They're really ruthless in the way they think. For them, it's trade, it's business, it's a job. Yeah, you may look at them and say that they're becoming westernized, but not really. Those women are very intelligent. They know what they're doing. Yeah, and the society has not given them a chance, hasn't given them a chance because a lot of women are also less educated than men. And we know that women earn less than men, and more men are employed in Kenya, for example, than women. And that is forcing a lot of women to go out there. And then also, let's not talk about stereotypes in the society, you know, and stigma in the society for single moms. So there's a lot of that. Okay, BMI is a Black American. I'm a Black American. Is if African people, especially women, go too far with individualism, it will destroy African peoples. Oh yeah, absolutely. This stuff has destroyed Black Americans. Yeah. definitely. Yeah. We agree with you
Yeah,
with that, but unfortunately, we're being influenced. The world is becoming a tiny little village. And many of your Black American brothers are coming over here and spoiling our girls also. Yeah. Teaching them to be individualistic. Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I was just thinking about the subjective element to all this, because you could have two people having similar experiences but responding very, very differently to them. So your personality also matters in how you respond to certain behaviors. You remember we were talking about the two children in the home, and talking about one who's the golden child and one who's the scapegoat, and the way they've responded they're in that environment, and because of perhaps the order of their birth, and also their personality types, they've responded differently to narcissistic parents. For instance, one will decide, I'm having nothing to do with this behavior, and sort of take a path which is different, and the other one will thrive and wallow in it and become a product of his parents. You know how they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So literally, and in Kiswahili we say mtoto wa nyoka ni nyoka. The child of a snake is a snake, literally. So you end up with similar behaviors from that child, and as a result of that, because the narcissistic parents understand that behavior, that is the child who's like embraced better than the one who's decided, I want none of this. I'm taking my different path, and
Mm-hmm.
behaving in a more humane manner, less absorbed behavior, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
Mm-hmm.
the subjective element cannot be underestimated, because that's something that I was listening to that show, and I was thinking about how we're saying your experiences influence what happened to you. You could have two children with similar spaces, and the question of what happened to you would be different. The outcome, the result of it would be
Mm-hmm.
different. One would be
Mm-hmm.
maybe very happy, very independent, very differently. The behavior is very different, and the other one is perhaps needing a lot of um, counseling support and stuff like that, because of how devastated they were by a
Yeah,
situation. And
yeah.
one of
But
the
if,
things
for
they said
example, you
is,
grow up with parents, for example, let's say these narcissistic, covert narcissistic, what they tend to do, they tend to pick one child. Yeah, one child is the one who's going to be their supply. So if that's the child that tends to end up having problems, not being able to adapt, adjust, and always wanting to please the parent, and that child is the one who becomes the most damaged. The other one could actually end up being ignored and end up forming their own personality. So, and maybe thrive and even reject the family and move away and just decide that they're not going to be part of it. But right now, the question is, going back to the question of this video, the shocking truth about why people can't love. These are some of the reasons why people can't love. How they were brought up. Yeah. How were you brought up? What kind of a home were you brought up in? And it takes a deliberate decision in your part to change, to say no, to move away from that, to learn new behaviors, just like Susan is saying, yeah. And BM is saying, the ladies of the night are playing a dangerous game. Femicide, the types of individualism is not sustainable if it's fleeting and momentary. Absolutely. But a lot of those ladies of the night, for example, in Kenya, unfortunately, we have a history. Our current situation is that we lost 100 women in 3 months to femicide. Kenya is like the femicide capital of the world. A lot of men, when they get rejected, Kenyan men that is, when they get rejected by women, or if they see women doing better, they actually just unalive them. There's no problem. And by the way, they unalive them while they're being cheered by fellow men. Yeah, very good. Who does she think she is? Why should she be successful? How can she have more money than me? So a lot of women, if you're too pretty, if you're too beautiful, if you're considered too beautiful, you should not be with another man. If you say no to me, I have a right to unalive you, and you can't take me anywhere. Nothing will happen to me. That is the attitude of many Kenyan men in this country. And therefore, a lot of those ladies of the night, the reason why they go for these white males or these foreign males is because they feel safer. They feel safer with them, believe it or not, PM. Hmm? They feel safer. It's rare. It happens, but it's rare, much more rare to hear of a Kenyan woman being unalived by a foreigner. Kenyan women are unalived by Kenyan men on a grand scale and with great impunity in this country. And I think this is one of the reasons why many women have actually, they're kind of boycotting relationships because of this, because they don't feel safe. And certainly, if you happen to be a single parent, then even the risk is even higher for you. Yeah. And if you happen to be a successful female, the risk is even higher. Like we saw the unalivement of, marathon runners. We've seen an unalivement of women. By the way, we're dealing right now with two cases where two women have taken their lives and the lives of their children. This woman just unalived herself and her three kids. Was it yesterday or the day before? And she comes from an upper class neighborhood, and she left an 8-page letter about her marriage. She first unalived her three kids and then unalived herself. And then there's another story of another lady who has unalived herself and her child. And there are others in the comment section. If you read those articles, in the comment section, you see a lot of women saying, I'm just waiting for the opportune time because I'm also going to do that. I'm planning to unalive myself and I'm not going to leave my child to suffer. And all of this, they're blaming the men in their lives. They're blaming like, for example, the lady who has three children, she unalived herself and her husband came home very late in the morning, like I think 4 o'clock. I think he has a habit of staying out at night and maybe having relationships. These are people who have never really understood how to resolve conflict, how to deal with conflict, how to deal with difficulties, how to deal with relationships. It's such a shame. Such a shame. So, right now, there's a lot of insecurity. People are feeling insecure. And I think this is one of the reasons, even for me as a parent, if I had a daughter right now, I'd be super insecure right now in this country with my daughter going out right now because there's a lot of women being unalived for no reason. Really, I mean, at least for us, we don't see any reason why a life should be taken. Why a man would take a life of a woman just because she said no. Whereas in history, from kingdom come, rejection is normal. In fact, it's a badge of honor as a man. I have a son, and I always told him, you know what? Being rejected is just kawaida. It's normal. I mean, you can't be accepted by every single woman. Not every woman will accept you. It's life. It's just life. It's just what it is. And older men of my generation, Gen X, they know it. They've been through so much rejection. Yeah, and there's no big deal. So what? It's not a big deal. So I think that there's a problem in our society. And today, being Valentine's Day, I was expecting to see many more posts on social media about Valentine's Day with a lot of flowers and things going on. But it was all about politics and Trump and people wanting to move countries. It's like they're just ignoring it. It's not even of interest to people. And there's some other people who I think have just decided to just boycott it. I think the men's conference is doing really well. Yeah. I think it's doing
Yeah,
really
they
well.
talk about
It should be evaluated. They're doing well
yeah,
because
I think
really they've convinced their
mm,
men not to participate. Mm? And a lot of women are sitting around waiting for chocolates. They're not even wearing, some of the women have even given up as well. They're not wearing red. Look at us. We're not wearing red here, Susan and I. We're in black, white, gray. This is the situation. It's a gray
yeah.
times, black and gray times.
No,
But
it's
for us, I mean, we're
because
just joking about us. But I mean,
yeah.
for the Louis is saying, how did it
uh,
shape my views of family and couples? It's challenging. My two sisters have their children in daycare. Both of my sisters make more money than their husbands. Hmm. Louis, I think this is due to my sisters growing up in a cold fish house. Okay, so the sisters grow up in a house where there's no what emotional attachment. I mean, you don't see displays of emotion between the parents, and so they're both out earning their husbands, and their children are in daycare. So it looks like they're also perpetuating the same. Louis, is that what you're saying? That they're also behaving almost like your parents and bringing up their children with in daycare centers instead of looking after them at home themselves. But I mean, if they're earning more money than their husbands, maybe they want that quality of life. So they've put money over their children. By the way, children in daycare, especially in the US, is actually very tragic to me. Yeah, because children go to daycare when they're like about 6 weeks old. It's a very young child to put in a daycare center. And those children end up actually feeling abandoned. And I don't know how these women concentrate at work. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to do that. Concentrate at work when my newborn baby is in a daycare center. I think it's very traumatizing. And I think maybe that's one way that maybe women are being forced to stop, women's feelings are being, the natural mother child bond, yeah, is literally being, um, what do we say? It's being violated. It's being violated. It's making women become unfeeling towards their children because I think maybe one day your child cries, the next day your child cries, the next day is just like normal. Yeah, daycare destroys children in the US. I would believe that. I would believe that, BMI. Yes. Children who are brought up in daycares have a really hard life because they haven't learned the attach, being able to attach to another person. Because in daycare, just imagine you're just born in this world straight away into daycare. No, that's not acceptable. I had my son in the US and I refused to put him in daycare. That one, I said no, 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 no. I'm going to be with that child, and that's why I brought him back to Kenya because I could not foresee how I could be a single mom, put my child in daycare, and go to work. How? How is that even possible? Your milk is telling you that it's time to feed your baby, and you can't feed your baby. That would destroy you. I think it destroys women as well. I think it really destroys women, and it's really unfortunate. Yeah, that's really
Yeah, just
sad.
talking. I just want to go back a bit on your discussion on some of the issues like murder, suicide. Some of the reasons are really complex. When you talk about the two ladies, one from maybe a high and well-to-do background, and the other one from not so well-to-do. Some of the reasons include that feeling of helplessness and really feeling that they have nothing left to live for, and so rather than leave their children, they go, the whole lot of them. The other ones do it out of revenge to teach a lesson. And so what they do is that they want the surviving parent to suffer. So that's those are some of the reasons that they do. I remember even one of the earliest stories that I read about in the news in Kenya was a lady who actually walked into a river, and she was caught trying to drown her children and herself. She wanted to drown herself and the children, which is perhaps one of the most painful ways to unalive yourself. So that's what she was planning to do, but she was caught. I think she had managed to unalive some of the children, but not all of them, and before she was stopped by the community. So those are some of the complex issues that have that people relate to, and also the background. You can see from the two, one is well to do and one is not. So this is a common sort of feeling of helplessness, or anger. And you're right about tolerance levels and coping levels of different generations to stress, because for what say say what the baby boomers learned from the silent generation, and what the Gen X learned from the actually their parents could also be in the silent generation, and then maybe a bit the earlier group of the baby boomers and that sort of thing. Each generation has its behavior. The Gen Zs don't like being lied to, and they're very forthright about issues. So if they just see a situation which is not unraveling in the right way, they're very quick to make decisions and articulate and just move on. from it very quickly. So I think these are some of the reasons why you're finding them not so keen on investing time in nurturing a relationship, because it takes time to nurture a relationship. You have to understand one another. You have to be committed to one another sufficiently to want to understand one another. And it's a two-way street. So both of you have to be willing to walk that journey together, so that you find ways of managing conflict. So it's not violent, but it's a conversation that you're going to have. And even if somebody says something you don't like, to be able to learn from it without, keeping a scorecard. They say, I remember one time in court, the judge was saying, what happened, it was heading to time for, it was heading to 5 o'clock. And there were these male advocates who just wanted to keep talking. But the judge said, look, let's just stop here. Do you realize that some of your female colleagues here, their minds have already left the courtroom? They're already thinking about how they're going to collect the children from school to school and go home, what they're going to cook, and what, and you guys are just talking about things, and they're not really listening to what to to what you're saying. The women, we remember everything, we remember everything. For instance, and he was giving an example of his own life, saying that he'd have a discussion with his wife, and she'd say, remember when you were wearing that dark blue suit, you told me this. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know.
I don't.
We're not like guys who compartmentalize stuff, Our stuff is all linked. It's a spiral.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but women, but the immediate conversation when you don't like something, it's better to speak about it as soon as possible rather than bottle it up. And that's what happens. You become very distant, and you build this resentment, and you get this anger, and there's no way to communicate, because you'd have to go down history. If you've been married for 30 years or 15 years, you have to go talk about 15 years of do you
Guilty as
remember?
charged, Susan.
Do you remember
Guilty
the
as charged. I'm one of those ones who knows how to go back into, I remember. Actually, that's not funny. Actually, it's not really funny, because I'll tell you a personal story. Actually, my husband complained to my sister, and he says, "You won't believe I complained about something." And he says, "Now she's talking about before we were even married." Before we were even married. Look at your sister. I say, "Yeah, but don't you remember? Don't you remember you did this to me? Huh? This is what you did. You did it. And that was how many, 14 years ago? How many years ago? And he's like so upset. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's just yesterday. What's the difference? You haven't changed. This is not changing. And you see, these are the things with we women. And men get so upset. And I always promise never to bring up the past. That's the thing. I always promise. But I can't keep my promise. It's one of the most difficult things to keep my promise on that. It's really interesting. Let me show you guys something quite interesting here. Let me share my screen with you and show you something. Let me see. What happens to single people on Valentine's Day? Let me show you how this single woman is feeling on Valentine's Day. Okay. Oops, sorry. Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
Please, no! No! No!
You never see anything. You never see anything. You just touch. You never see anything.
Hello.
Oh, sorry. Don't cry. Don't cry.
I just thought that was hilarious. Something to show you. There you are. You know, on Valentine's Day, such a terrible day. You keep scrolling on your phone, and everybody seems to be in love except yourself. You decide to throw your phone away, and you open the window, and there's those two stupid lovebirds, having a great time. That's a story. I thought that was just hilarious. I wanted to share that with you guys that, when you're looking for love, it looks like everybody else is in love except you. I think all I can say to people is this: when it comes to relationships and love and all that, it's about being intentional, guys. It's about being intentional with yourself. Learn how to love. If you have any history, trauma with your childhood, work on those and be open to it. I always say that. Louis, you remember, I've always been saying this. It's about you working on yourself, us working on ourselves, and learning to allow ourselves to love and to learn from the mistakes of the past, either from our parents, and to let them go. Because like this, like Oprah Winfrey, that discussion, they were saying that these are not permanent situations. Just because you grew up like that doesn't mean that your family has to be like that. You can decide, like Susan said, to go the opposite direction. So you can decide to be that person who shows PDA as much as possible. But it's also important to find a partner who's also willing to heal. Because most people, I'd say 99% of people come from dysfunctional families. Why? Because there's no perfect family. That's why. There's always one type of dysfunction or another. So even if you don't have a psychotic background, you could have a background where everybody was so serious, nobody laughed, or you have a situation where everybody was drinking and partying and just having a great time. So whatever situation it is, you're bringing two people together, they're not brothers, and maybe you're looking for that. One of the things also is just to acknowledge that, yeah, we need each other. We need partners in life. I think, I don't know who, unless you're a nun, you want to be a monk or a nun, then you will need a partner, yeah, in this life. And whatever the situation is, one has to eventually get partnered to be happy, to be truly, truly happy. Most people are looking for someone. So my issue is not to give up, and work on yourself and look for someone who's also working on themselves. I think I think in the good old days where parents used to know each other, where there was kind of like arranged marriages, it might have been easier. But now we don't even know who we are meeting. We could be meeting a serial killer, for God's sake. You could be meeting somebody who is completely, off the charts in terms of, mental health issues. You could be meeting somebody who's got mental health issues, serious mental health issues, very serious. Yeah. Could be finding a violent person or somebody who doesn't like to communicate. And you be the most miserable person on this earth. Again, is also to say no to relationships that are not working, relationships that are toxic. If one finds oneself in that type of situation, to forgive oneself and say, stop, I can't continue. No, let me get out of here. Because there are so many other options out there. And that doesn't mean unaliving your partner. It just means moving away. Yeah. So the whole idea is just to be self-sufficient as much as possible. For women, women must be self-sufficient. Men too. You must, at least financially, one should try one's best to at least be able to live within one's means, and at least be able to put a roof over your own head and food in your stomach, so that you're not at that point where you're so dependent on this other person that you can't leave a toxic relationship. Yeah. So BMI says singleness is not natural. I agree. After a certain age, singleness is not necessarily the preferred. But for some people it's okay, but it's not necessarily the preferred way to live, really. Because why is it a lot of people always say, oh, I don't want a partner, and then all they do is complain about partners. So then why, if you're not interested in a partner, are you even talking about it? Why is it a subject of discussion for many young people? Yeah, they talk about being child free, single forever, marriage is a scam. I was actually telling the lady I gave a ride today. I said, "Are you one of those marriage is a scam chicks?" One of
Mm-hmm.
and she says, she started laughing. I said, "Yeah, why do you guys are messing up marriage for the whole wide world? Why are you saying that marriage is a scam? Just because you cannot find your marital partner does not mean that marriage is a scam. It is not a scam. Marriage is a necessity, is a backbone of the society. So important. And I think
It
it's
was
not
ordained by God.
it's not
Yeah.
the only, yes, it's not the only one, but it's the most fundamental. Most of us are here because some people got married at some point, you know? So, this idea of living single and living with your cat and your dog, unfortunately, those animals cannot talk to you, you know? And they also have a shorter lifespan. I remind people, these ones, they don't live long, like 80 years, unless you want to get married to a tortoise. Then it can outlive you. Yeah. But really, sincerely, animals are not, they can't replace human beings. They just cannot. We need human interaction, and children need healthy environments in which to grow up. So, our young girls and our young, even older women should not give up. When women become widowed, when they're maybe in their 30s, 40s, you become widowed, you know, you are free to marry again, by the way. Yeah. Just remember not to kill your spirit. I think that's the most important thing.
I
And
think I find it.
BMI is saying that our species has always been social and cooperative. The single stuff is nonsense. Hey, you're with me. I'm with you, BMI, completely. Yeah, it's nonsense. To me, it's nonsense anyway. But you can't tell that to a nun who gets paid to have sausages and eggs every day by the Vatican. You know, I mean, they always contribute money into those monasteries, and they're busy praying all day. Unless you want to be that one person who's, it's rare, because even if you don't want to get married, eventually you're still going to have a partner who's in your house or that you meet once in a while to satisfy your needs, isn't it? Yeah. Truth be told, most people are not single. Even the single ones are not. Even the ones who think they are, they're not, because they still have somebody on their phone that they call when they need the opposite sex. Yeah. Nuns and priests have never been the norm. Okay, let me not try and normalize them.
Okay,
You need
yeah.
to come on stage.
Let,
Yeah, I
let me
agree with
just
you.
say,
I agree with you, BMI.
yeah, let me just say something about that. I think singleness is quite a complex issue. There's some who choose it, and maybe for, they have good reasons for it. So they choose it, and I don't think that's the category of people you're addressing there. Yeah, because they choose it for good reason. And as we've done in one of our shows, there are very many reasons why people choose it. But if you're choosing singleness in order to avoid, um, you know, taking that step because of fear for the wrong reasons, if you're choosing singleness for the wrong reasons, that's where the concern is, because it means that perhaps you need to, to address that issue. You need to have somebody talk with you about it, because your reasons for being single are not the right ones. So you need to fix that. I was going to comment again about. So I think we need to when you look around, we always have that. There's an aunt or somebody or a relative who has around us who has lived a single life as a single person. They've not had a partner that you know of or you've seen, but they are really busy. They have like a different job to do in your family. They're the aunt of all the children, the aunt to all the young people talk to and tell the stories, and then the parents are able to understand what's going on in the lives of their children, because they feel free with that particular aunt or uncle or whoever it is. And so I think it's, I wouldn't say it's something that's abnormal, but I think it has its place in society. Singleness, it has its place in society, because there's some people who don't, they just, that's the way they are physically. That's their makeup. That's the way they are. And there are other
Oh, yeah.
people who are very sort of, they enjoy their own company a lot. you know they enjoy it a lot. I don't know whether that is one of the
I
categories you're
totally
talking about.
understand, because even in my family, we have them. In my very close family, we have people like those who are alone, completely alone with nobody else. That's not the people we're talking about, because they're not. We're talking about this trend, the social media trend. Love is a scam. Marriage is a scam. Avoid marriage. By the way, there are people actually who have whole channels dedicated to this kind of thing. And what they're trying to do is to try to influence the mainstream. not the minority, but the mainstream, to see marriage as undesirable, to see singleness as desirable, to see what do we say, to see having children as being freedom. They call it being freedom. When you don't have children, you are free. That's why they call it child free, not childless, child free. Okay. So it's as if people who have children are trapped, that they are not free, that they are, in a in a position which they should not be. And then you start to see them attracting people who are saying, I am a parent, but I wish I never was. I am a mother, but given a chance, I would never have had these children. I love my kids, but I wouldn't have had them. So I wonder to myself, when those children grow up and they see their mother say those things, because by the way, the internet never forgets. And then all the children who are being brought up now, who are listening to these stories online of people saying that they're child free. You're a child, but you're hearing adults saying, I'm child free. Can you imagine the hate that those children will feel for themselves? Yeah. They'll feel unloved, they'll feel unwanted, even if they're here. And there seems to be some sort of disdain. Like there seems to be those people who have children and those people who don't have. So it's like a trend. It's like fashionable not to have kids. But and it's fashionable not to be paired up, which is like, it's like, it's just completely unnatural, just like I think BMI said. And he says there's,
Yeah,
what did he say here? BMI is saying single people are the exception to the human rule. Yeah, they're the exception. They're fewer. And then there's also, and he's also saying, what is he saying here? Those toxic single people are miserable. They want company. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Fake single people. They're fake. Not all of them. Yeah, Susan, it's not all of them. There are many people who proclaim to be single, but they're not. It's only that you don't see their partner. They have partners that they call on the phone and they meet up. And some of those partners are married, by the way. Some of the single people who say that they're single and that marriage is a scam, some of them are saying it's a scam because they're actually going out with married people. And so for them, they can actually say that marriage is a scam because they're actually in a relationship with a married person. So to them, what they see is cheating married people. And the same thing with those people who say that they're child free. Some of them, it's because they can't have kids, actually. They would love them, but they can't have them for whatever reason. Maybe they waited too long and they couldn't have kids. Or maybe and their menopause came in early. Or maybe they just don't have the financial wherewithal, or they don't have the strength to actually look after children, because having children is not just giving birth, it's raising them. So maybe they don't want to raise children. They don't want that responsibility. So now they start to promote this child-free response, this child-free thing. But for how long? How long are they going to be looking the way they look with their beautiful makeup and wearing nice clothes? Are these clothes and houses and material things, how can they be more important to anyone? We're going to leave all these things when we leave them behind, but we don't leave relationships. Relationships remain in our brains, in our minds, in our souls, forever and ever, even after we go. I believe that, but I don't think I'm going to be remembering my relationship with my couch and my table and my lovely kitchen items, which I bought, and my beautiful dresses and designer shoes. I don't think that's going to have any sort of long-term effect on me, even after this life is over, or even when I'm older. Like right now, when my mom is old now, she's constantly with albums, looking at pictures. She doesn't care about what she owns. She just cares about the relationships. So she's always looking at pictures. And you see a lot of elderly people, they keep a lot of pictures and picture frames all over the whole house because it's all about relationships. Yeah, relationships are so important. We cannot undermine them. BMI says, I'm a single man. My condition is not natural. I do not promote singleness. But it's okay as long as you... It's so funny. I don't know what to say about that one. It's just funny.
Thank you for being frank. That's
I wish people would come in studio.
Yeah. No, that's important what he has just said. I'm looking back at what you said about um, parents saying things which could harm their children if they ever found out what they said about them being here. Um, I remember when I was doing a lot of child rights activism, there was a clause in one of the our in our matrimonial causes act that said that um, a man could have his marriage annulled if he found out that his wife was pregnant at the time of their marriage from another man. So you can imagine a situation where the child is the cause of the annulment, not the mother's action, but the child. And I felt that was very contrary to preserving the right, protecting the rights of the child, or even acting in the best interest of the child. Is putting the blame on the child, and not the activities of the adults. So there's some things that happen, and I'm really I'd like to speak about that. Please let us watch what we say about our children, because you never know how they'll get to find out what you said. For instance, if in Kenya, for instance, if you're a law student and you come across, say, the proceedings as a case that is now a famous case that everybody uses to argue the a certain point of law, and you come across this story about your parents and some of the things they said about each other. They're divorced now, but some of the things they said about each other, I mean, that, and then it's public knowledge because other law students will read that information. It's very harmful to a child. In fact, that resonated very starkly with me because I came across a case where I knew the parties, and some nasty stuff was said about between the parents, and it was there for everybody to see. And one over enthusiastic law student wrote a very rude comment about the behavior of one of the parties, and it is only, and you wrote it in a pen, and it is on the library copy, so everybody sees it. So if you want to photocopy that particular authority, say, to argue in a case, it comes with that student's remarks, very rude remarks, and then those are somebody's parents. So let's be really careful what we say as adults about our children. It's not right, because you may have said that in the heat of the moment, but it will maybe become something that will be immortalized somehow because it's written down, or it's something that somebody heard you say about your own children. So it's something we really need to watch it. And I know some of those parents will probably regret it at some point when the children confront them and tell them, you said ABCD about me, and I heard what you said. And maybe the parents were so shocked, maybe they couldn't even recall that particular incident, but they've already damaged the child, and that child has begun to behave in a certain way because of a comment that you made. So we need to be really careful, and like I said, solve problems at the earliest possible moment. Parents, let's learn to say apologize to our children. That's not a Gen Z thing, it's not a millennial thing, it's not a baby boomer thing, or silent generation, or even beyond, of Gen Alpha. It is human. It's something that we should practice as human beings. Accept when you make mistakes and apologize to your children and make amends as early as possible. When you allow things to stay, that's when the resentment comes in. That's when the coldness towards one another comes in. When in 1925 you said this, the stories will start coming like that, and then those barriers are very difficult to bridge. Yeah. You're muted. You're muted.
Yes. Louis is saying here, uh, I'm a single man. Oh no, Louis is saying, I think that's the reason why some cultures, religions created arranged marriage to avoid this singleness problem. It's a problem, by the way. It's a big problem. In my view, it is a problem. I agree. And BMI is also saying it's Western nonsense. It's anti-human. Mm? I think all of us recognize that it's just strange. It doesn't make any sense, really, if you think about it. I was looking at this article in Psychology Today by this guy called Eric, PhD, Dr. Eric Janazo, and he's talking about his stories about why some people can't love. And he says, we balk at the thought, and yet it's true. Some people actually cannot love. He says, not everyone is capable of love. It's a simple truth. And yet the mind resists forming the words. Even reading it here, no doubt, is jarring. It's terrifying. It's a terrifying idea. It speaks to the game of chance and surrender that governs far more of life than we want to acknowledge. What if I find myself needing love from someone incapable of it? What if I've been brought into this world by such a person? What if I'm married to someone unpossessed of this basic orientation to another? We like to assume that lovingness is woven into the basic stuff of every human heart, and if dormant, needs only somehow to be unlocked. And yet, we might spend decades of our lives searching for the key. So he says, your parents didn't love you, and it reflects. And no, your parents didn't love you. So he says he's reflected on patients, and it's enormous things to say, and yet it's true that if their parents didn't love them, then it's a defining problem of their entire lives. Yeah. And he also says something to do with the fact that, but then they've described in detail and for years all the way in which they simply were not loved, and all the ways in which their own basic goodness were not seen, all the ways in which they were devalued, neglected, or abused. Some parents don't love their children. We cringe at the notion. What could be more unnatural, more perverse? And yet the fact remains. Your parents didn't love you. You imagined they could. If only they got along better. If only they were happier. If only there was more money, especially if you were different. And yet you didn't love you because they didn't love you because they were not capable of love. This is really sad and very, very deep, you guys, and basically what he's saying is that the truth is that for many of us, there was no person we ever could have been to receive the love we craved. And of course, we are so utterly hurt, since what could possibly be more hurtful than to be poorly loved by the people we need the most? Yeah. And so I thought that was, really interesting, intriguing, something. He talks about the fact that people yearn for connection. We yearn for a life of connection and meaning, a place in human relations and affairs that feels like some authentic expression of who we are. Okay. And that's a fact. What he's describing basically is the fact that all of us have a need for love. Some of us were not loved the way we deserve to be loved as babies, as children. And some of us were not loved by people who are incapable of loving, by the way. And that cannot change. But that does not change the fact that we still yearn for connection and for love. So I think Valentine's Day, for me, the meaning of Valentine's Day is to remind me about the fact that love is the all-encompassing and the most important thing in life. And this is the reason why we have wars in this world, why people do unloving things to people in this world, is because they lack love. And we should not underestimate it or downplay it or make it look like it is inferior to materialism or to careers or to any other thing. Because in the end, it's only love that can keep this planet alive. Otherwise, if we introduce hate, what's the opposite of love is hate. And that's what we're seeing more and more of in social media. A lot of hate, a lot of hate speech, a lot of hate speech, a lot of intolerance, a lot of uncaring thoughts, uncaring remarks, unkind remarks. Somebody says something about the fact that they've lost their loved one, and someone says, oh, move on. What's your problem? Move on. And we are unkind people. We have to work really hard. We have to work on justice, and part of justice is love. I don't know. I mean, I think it's
Yeah,
the greatest thing and it's the most important thing. And they're different types of love. Yeah, that's true, as according to. But overall, in the end, fact is, love is empathy, and that's one thing that is really lacking in society. Empathy, feeling for another person is deemed to be
yeah.
weak.
Mm,
I don't understand. Which world are we in right now, you guys?
yeah, I think some of the reasons why, well, there's no good reason for not loving your child. Um, you said that some people are incapable of it, and that could have something to do with what is in what's happening in their brain. But others when they blame the children for their circumstances, or, for instance, an unhappy marriage, or the fact that they were not able to to get what they needed, to achieve what they needed in life. Say a woman found herself in an arranged marriage, and she was not able to get her to be a doctor, or to advance herself in to meet her career plans because of expectations from the family or society. We have some societies still where the that happens. The girls will go up to school up to a certain level. They'll even be the smartest and brightest in the class. But when they get up to a certain level, they have to get married. And these things are arranged. So there could be resentment about something like this. So they see the children as, part of the problem. So they start blaming the children for for the whole thing. They blame the children because, say, the husband doesn't love them and is maybe wandering off, or doesn't treat them with love, or they blame the children because of many things, maybe their own experience, with their own experience growing up. So that's what they learn. That's how children are supposed to be brought up. Like, for instance, that neighbor I was telling you about, the one who used to shout at us, I mean, we could hear her yet bellowing, and her daughter is just watching us playing from, and she was so cold, so cold. So, and we were even afraid to speak to her. I mean, she would just shout and people scatter. To I mean, we were supposed to be there. We shared a common compound. We were three maisonettes, and we had a common space. That sort of thing.
Hmm.
But she terrified us, and she was very, 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 very cold. We never
There's
wanted to go
nothing
near her.
worse than a cold mother. Oh my God.
Yeah, and the
Oh
child
my
was
God.
actually terrified. Mm, she
Hmm.
was terrified. She was terrified of her mom. And in fact, she would sneak out sometimes, come and play with us. And when she sees the car, we were all complicit in trying to make sure she was back in her house and back in her room before the mother came and found out she had been socializing with other children. So I don't know whether, there was some blame, but I find that though there could be a connection where you find the mother is disconnected, or the father is disconnected to children because of
Those
blaming
are
them
people,
for
yeah.
something. Yeah,
Those are
which
people
is
who never
very
worked on
wrong.
their childhood, their childhood traumas, maybe, you know. They could be. BNI is saying, we've replaced materialism with love, definitely. With arranged marriages, men and women grow and evolve into love. Yeah. In some cases, yes. I mean, we definitely have to admire the Indians, the Asians. We really have to, because they still do arranged marriages. And in some cases, the way they do arranged marriages, they have to agree to one another. It's just like the families will introduce you and say, okay, do you agree to this one? You say, yes, I agree, or I don't agree. And that's okay. Nowadays it's a bit different. People are allowed to meet also now, and it's not strict in terms of you must marry this person. Usually you have to accept the person. But the idea that parents would actually be trying so hard to ensure that their children have mates. Nigerians, especially West African Nigerians, are very big on this one. And I really like them for that. I like Nigerians for that because they've retained our African culture. And because I think we have become too westernized, especially in East Africa. That's the reason why there's a single mom crisis, huge one, because there's so many women who are focusing on their careers, young women focusing on their careers, which is good. But what happens is that those are also the same as the reproductive years. where it's only natural that women and men, start to look for each other at a certain age. And therefore, it's very possible for women to become single moms. And in West Africa, women are getting married very, very young, very young. They get married in their early 20s. Although some of those women, I've seen them, some of them are social media creators. Um, they complain and they say that that's not a good thing. They wish they never had children when they were younger. They wish they never got married when they were young, in their young 20s. I say to myself, no, I don't think there's any mistakes. I think it's okay. Yeah, because having your kids early means that you also reduce the risk of them having any sort of uh, genetic or whatever problem, or some sort of a birth problem. And so having your children a bit younger is also safer for you as a woman. Yeah, because the older you are, as you know, you face more risk with producing a child that has issues. But when you're younger, then you most likely will have healthier children, and you're also strong enough to chase them around the compound, run around with them with plates, and run around changing diapers. It's a lot of hard work. It's difficult for women in their 40s to be having kids. It's not easy. Yeah, it's not easy for women to have kids after they're 35. It's not easy. They can and they do, but it's not easy. It's much easier when you're in your 20s, much easier. So I think it's just an issue of priorities, and pushing back on the society, and this whatever the society is trying to push on us, and to say no to
Yeah,
it. And I'm glad that we have two men in this. We have two men in our forum today who are both
yeah,
pro family, and I love that. I love the fact that we
yeah.
have these people who understand, and we are all kind of on the same page.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to add to what
Kenya has
Louis
the
was
highest rate
saying.
of single motherhood in all of Africa. It's true. It's a terrible, terrible thing, because a lot of women get pregnant, and then a lot of men. Why do we have so many single mothers? Because we have so many irresponsible fathers. So many irresponsible fathers. So many. Yeah, and there's no punishment by society, because the single mothers, I mean, women don't have children by themselves. We all know that. If the woman is pregnant, the man is also pregnant. He also had the baby. She didn't have a baby by herself. That's his child. That child has DNA from a man. The man is just not there. He's not providing. He's not taking responsibility. He should take responsibility, or he should keep his jewels in his zipped up, if he doesn't want children, you know? So it's both sides. And the trouble is that we have a very unegalitarian society, and a society that promotes promiscuity, especially amongst men, not just amongst women, but amongst men. It encourages them to be promiscuous and to sleep around, and not to take responsibility. Yeah. Because you see, men can sleep around very often out there, and you'll never know how many children they have sired outside there. You'll never know. But a woman, once she's had a baby, you know how many children she has. You can count. But for the men, you can't. Yeah. And that's the difference. That's the difference. We have very irresponsible, very, very irresponsible culture here.
Yeah, I just wanted
Drunkenness
to
and
jump in.
unemployment explains a lot. Yeah, that too. That's true. Break and westernization, like you mentioned, BMI. Westernization, a lot of that.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in on the comment, materialism has replaced love. Materialism has replaced love, for sure. I mean, like the headline we saw, money not roses. But at the end of the day, it's even the simplest of things that makes the most memorable moment. When you're showing love, just time. uh, Time is so important, and I think that could be one of the initial reasons why you set aside that day once in a year for Valentine's Day, where you spend time specifically with your loved ones, just to express love. And it doesn't have to be a lavish event. It just time is really, really something that should be valued and taken really seriously. Your opening comment when you showed that video, the first video, where the statement was, "You cannot make someone like you, by giving them what they don't want. I think that raises so many issues that in the first place, you have not bothered to study that person sufficiently to know what they want. So you're giving them things that they don't want. So, for instance, this question now of money, not roses. And in fact, the first time I was having a conversation earlier today, and they said, "Oh, now the women are getting money, not roses." And my first thought was that it has something to do with what's happening, the economy. So the roses are seen to be something, a leisurely thing. That we don't really need the roses, but the money is what you need more. Maybe there's a much needed change of shoes that you need because you've worn out your other pair of shoes, or something else that you need to get so that you look decent in the office, jacket,
Yeah, but
or
$1,000, 1,000,
no.
and a bunch of
I'm
flowers.
saying
Yeah, but I'm saying the comparison. Yeah, the comparison. Yeah, it's true.
no. As not,
Yeah, it's definitely
I mean,
triggered by the economic situation that we have. But
not everybody got that $1,000. Maybe it was 5,000 shillings or 1,000 shillings or something like that. They'd even prefer that 1,000 shillings to the bunch of roses, because of and maybe or something like that. And again, so
I'm laughing at
materialism has
BMI's comments, Susan. Sorry to interrupt. He's so funny.
yeah,
He says, obviously, your parents did something right. Two ladies with husbands. This guy's going to make me die laughing here. That is hilarious. I didn't mean to laugh, but that is hilarious. Susan's going to die laughing too. BMI, eh? Me, I got married much later, my friend. I was a single mother for like 22 years before I got married. So I'm a recent woman. I'm a recently married person. Yeah. But it's because I always desired it. Yeah. It's something that I always wanted. And I think I found the man much later, much later in my life. So when I just laughed. So actually, no, I didn't do anything right at the beginning. I was a single mom and then got married later. that's my situation. I'll leave Susan to answer the rest. Susan is quiet. Her situation is private. You'll find out about it slowly, slowly and gently.
yeah, for sure. I mean, just yeah, I'd rather not comment on that. Yeah. So when that comment about not giving somebody something they don't like, it just really also explains the type of relationships people are getting into. They're not bothering to find out what the other person appreciates and doesn't appreciate. Some people just prefer to sit down and read a book together, or just do something together, something simple. And the lavish activities really don't make them happy. So I don't know whether we can all reflect on some of the most beautiful moments in our lives with our family. It's just doing the simple things, cooking together, sitting around, watching something that I make really difficult. Well, no, they don't like it, but sometimes I insist during Christmas that we watch these Hallmark Christmas movies, much to the horror of the family members. Do they sit there and complain throughout the movie? They complain about everything.
Susan, how would you make them sit through a Hallmark, those Gen Zs? Are you sure?
They
You don't want to
they
be called a
complain.
dinosaur?
One time we said, let's watch Grease. Have you ever watched Grease? One
Yeah.
Christmas we said, let's watch
Greases, there
Grease.
were John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. Who doesn't remember those people?
Oh, you watch it now. You watch it now. You will
I
laugh.
watched
We told our children, "Oh, this is just the best movie. You've got to
movie.
watch it. You've got to watch it. The beautiful songs, and stuff like
The
that." So
quality.
we
I
got
saw
the
it
video.
recently. I couldn't believe it.
We watched it with my children. They laughed. They laughed it up. They said, "This is the movie." John Travolta's shot.
Do you remember lining up outside of Nairobi Cinema for days to get tickets to Greece? Oh my God, that was it. I tell you, people's perspectives really change. I can't even believe I was alive then. Sometimes I wonder to myself, was I alive all those years ago? Really, seriously, or are we living in a cycle? What is this life? It's so weird. Yeah. Have I gone and come back? Did I go and come back? Have I been here all this time? Hmm? Oh yeah, we should do an old school. There's somebody who told me that we should do an old school video. Sorry, and something on old school topics about how things used to be old school in the 80s.
I heard my Gen Z.
I think
Listen,
we're
I
gonna
heard
do that. We're gonna do that, guys.
I heard my Gen Z listening to the songs we used to dance to. Do you remember
Yeah.
Saturday Night Fever?
Oh my. Yeah.
Uh,
I can't believe
More
it.
Than a Woman, More Than a Woman. Do you remember that? More Than a Woman. Celebrate
Timeless
Good
music.
Times. Cool
Timeless
and the
music.
Gang.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, my
Susan, you're
Gen
gonna
Z
make me
was
start dancing.
listening to
This is
it.
not the time, man. It's not fair. It's not fair. Don't bring up those words. Don't bring up those that music. Don't bring up that subject. Please don't. You might just see a different African Queen Moe here. Just get up and start dancing all of a sudden, huh? Oh God. Yeah. But BMI says, my first date with my hubby was Lion King. Oh, Fia said. Sorry. Fia said, my first date with my hubby was Lion King.
Oh,
Fia,
the music was
seriously.
lovely. Eh?
I'm so interested in Lion King. Oh my goodness gracious. And you say it loudly here. That's hilarious. But anyway, it was a great movie, though. The Lion King was a really great movie compared to Wakanda, that was the real movie over there. And then BMI says, your parents and culture instilled the value of marriage and family in you. It is deep in your souls. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That one, yes. I believe Susan would agree to that, and she can comment on that.
Sorry,
Your
just say
parents,
that again.
your parents
Yeah.
and culture instilled the value of marriage and family in you. It's deep in your
Yeah,
souls.
that's very, very true. Your faith, your culture, how you were raised, really, and your culture and
Yeah.
everything, it really did, and even
Yeah.
made you see that
Fear
perhaps
agrees.
that's something that, yeah, I
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fia is African. She's Zimbabwean living in the UK, and she agrees with you on that one, BMI. Yes. We had also because of our parents, I guess, you watch your parents, you watch your grandparents. Family was everything, still is everything. And we've been asked to question a lot of the things that are going on based on tradition, based on what we saw was normal, what was normalized. We only saw men and women getting married in traditional culture. We saw nothing else. Just that's it. That's all we saw. Marriage was between a man and a woman. Period. That was it. So when Trump opens his mouth and says that there's only two genders, we are like, oh, well, is that news? Why should it be news? Why should it be
You
news?
know,
Apart, of course, there are some people who are born with both parts, but at least I believe myself that nature makes it very evident that there's no question. Yeah, there's nothing to question. You see it, and it's not like we don't have those people in our societies. We do. Intersex, they're called intersex. We know that they're there. Yeah, it's not the same as gays and LGBTQs. They're not the same. Intersex is different. Yeah, these are people who are born. It's evident. Yeah. So I think nature makes it very evident, if there's any difference.
but they're
That's like
still
if somebody
either
is born with an extra
male.
finger. Hmm?
But even the DSDs, the intersex, they're actually either male or female. If you check beyond, they're actually either male or female. They're not both.
Eventually, yes, eventually they gravitate to either or one. But in terms of being born with both body parts, yes,
It's
and
not. It's
eventually they gravitate to one. And one of them is even a friend of mine. Yeah. And well, I saw them on TV and then I befriended them because I wanted to understand it. And yeah,
I,
she was known, she grew up with a female name. And when she grew up, no, when she was a baby, she was female or called female. And then as she grew up, she's from the Maasai community, she changed into a male. She says she gravitates more to being a male. And her parents allowed her to keep her sexuality as is until she defines who she is. The Maasai are very traditional and they don't believe in anything like, there was a time that she was supposed to go for a sex change, or they were supposed to choose either one, but the parents and the elders said no, that she'll eventually find her place. And she did. And now she's a he. She's he. She said,
yeah,
it's unfortunate she grew up being called a woman, but as she grew up, she realized that she's more male, and now she's a male. Yeah, and
yeah.
that's okay.
I think what
Hmm.
it is ambiguous. It's called ambiguous.
Hmm.
Um, so when they observe, it's ambiguous. So in the past, especially like in the Africa, um, they didn't have the ability, and even in the West in the earlier times, to test beyond what they could see,
Yeah.
especially if it was ambiguous what they could see. But actually, it's called a micro the male genitalia,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
actually do have they do possess the undescended testicles. They have the male gonads
Hmm.
actually, but
Hmm.
it's not visible. There's only one of those which is a female, and it's called a Turner syndrome,
Yes.
and where
Hmm.
it's ambiguous. So really, DSDs, scientifically, at least what I've been learning online, I've been following this because of men in women's sports.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's another topic. But yeah,
Yeah.
so so really, it's really they're either male or female. They're not.
Eventually,
They're not
yes.
both. Not
Yes, but for a
eventually. You're actually
period, yeah, until they're adolescents, you can't really tell sometimes. You have to wait.
no,
You have
you
to give
can't.
it time. According to
What I'm
according to this lady or this now gentleman, you have to wait until the hormones kick in. You have to
actually,
wait.
they actually go through. They actually
Puberty.
go through. Yeah, male puberty. But there's something about an enzyme that's not secreted, which doesn't help the physical the male genitalia to develop the way it should be. So it's physically you can see it when they get into puberty, but if you test them from birth, you'll be able to tell that this is actually a male child. And I think in
Oh,
the
okay.
I
Yeah.
think in the West they're actually doing that.
Mm-hmm.
They actually know, even if it's ambiguous, what they're seeing is ambiguous, they can tell this is a male child or a female child. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And BMI is saying
yeah, and
intersex is the exception, not the rule. The liberal West wants to turn intersex into a rule. Yeah, and it says you agree with Trump. Everyone with common sense does. I do agree with him, not on every single thing, but I do agree with him in general, overall. Yes, he has to protect America. America is for Americans first, eh? Yes, we accept that. We in Africa, we don't even want this aid dependency, and that's another topic, guys. We're still talking about the shocking truth about why people can't love, and now we are closing the show. It's midnight now, and almost midnight now, and I just want to give Susan the last word. Suzanne, any last word before I wrap up? We wrap up.
yeah, certainly, yeah, certainly we've had quite an engaging chat. Thank you so much, the gentleman and the chat, and
And
anybody who
Fia,
has chatted.
the
There was
lady.
Fear,
Yeah.
yeah, there's
Hmm.
BMI and there's Louis, and I'm
Yeah.
sure there'll be other comments because some of the points we've touched a bit controversial. We might have different views, but definitely, why people can't love, it could be something biological, that's the way your makeup, and it could be as a result of social circumstances that you don't know how to love or even experience it or even to articulate it. And it really has something to do with, for if you're not able to articulate it or experience it, and it's due to social factors, it's because of the attachment. You have not formed a proper attachment with your parent. You've not experienced a love, so you go into these insecure categories, and some, if you know, you could be completely avoidant. You don't enjoy contact with your caregiver or with your parent or with others, so you're a bit aloof from it. Could also socially, it could also be learned behavior. That's the way your parents behave toward one another, and that's how you've been treated, so that you think that's normal behavior to be
Mm-hmm.
that way, and that's what you end up being. So at the end of the day, it's something that you can, once you observe that your behavior is different, is you can always get, it's not a lifetime thing. You can actually change your behavior. It's not something that has to
Mm-hmm.
be the way you live your life.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Susan. And for me, I'm going to end with Psychology Today, which says that if you're the kind of person who dismisses love, dismisses loving relationships or partnering, here's some things for you to think about. Okay, that one, recognize the pattern you are enacting and that your emotional system is playing tricks on your conscious mind. Number two, focus in on the physical sensation that you feel when your partner gets close. See if you can give it a name. See if you can separate out the loving feelings from the anxiety. Aha. Number four, and there are five of them, by the way, realize that the grass really isn't greener elsewhere. Often the love you want is not far away. Is not far away, if not in front of you. And the final one is learn to love yourself, embrace the more tender, soft parts of your being, and nurture them like you would a young child who needs your care. If you can learn to do this for yourself, you'll find it easier to do this for others. Yep, I think that's really interesting. So, guys, on that note, thank you so much, BMI, Louis, Fia, and all of you guys who are going to come in to watch the video after it's already been published. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you for sending me messages. I get them even on my phone. I really enjoyed that video yesterday. Thank you very much, whatever. So, guys, remember to put comments here and thumbs up the videos, because that way YouTube is going to promote them, yeah? So we'll see you on Sunday with the mental health show, and we have a very interesting topic for that one. And thank you so much for your time, and good night. Happy Valentine's. Kwaherini. Love you guys. Bye-bye. Bye, Susan.
Bye.
Good night. Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Yeah.
Good night.
Nice.